My family sued me as a fake veteran. He never served. He made it all up. My mother hissed in court. I didn't react. I just watched the judge. She stood up slowly and then took off her robe. My name is Derek Concade, and I sat in courtroom 14B watching my parents try to erase me. 6F of industrial carpet separated us. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, that specific frequency that makes your teeth ache if you listen too long. My mother wouldn't look at me. My father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. They were suing me for fraud. Their lawyer, a slick bastard named Preston Sterling, paced in front of Judge Amelia Mendez's bench like a shark circling prey. His shoes clicked against the tile with each measured step. Designer suit, gold cufflinks catching the light. The kind of guy who bills $450 an hour to destroy people's lives before lunch. Your Honor, Sterling's voice carried that practiced courtroom resonance. This man has fabricated an entire military career. He's stolen valor, forged documents, and collected veteran benefits he doesn't deserve. I stayed silent, hands folded on the defense table, back straight, eyes forward. Sterling pulled out his evidence with theatrical precision. Glossy photo albums spread across the evidence table. Family vacations in the Hamptons, holiday cards, Mason's football trophies lined up like soldiers. Not a single military photo, he announced. No basic training pictures, no deployment shots, nothing. He produced official-looking documents. We've submitted requests to public records. No discharge papers, no DD-214 form. The Department of Veterans Affairs has no standard file. My court-appointed attorney, Rita Vance, a tired public defender juggling 40 cases, shuffled her notes nervously. She'd met me twice, didn't know what to do with my silence. This is delusion, Sterling announced, pivoting toward the judge. A son desperate for attention, constructing an elaborate fantasy to exploit state resources. My mother leaned forward, then pearl earrings catching the light. Chanel suit perfectly pressed, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. He never served. He made it all up. I didn't flinch, didn't blink. They thought silence meant guilt. They didn't understand that silence is what you learn when mortars are falling and someone's bleeding out in your arms, and the only sound that matters is the medevac bird coming over the ridge. Growing up in the Cade house meant understanding your place in the hierarchy. My brother Mason was the golden child, 6.2, quarterback for Westfield High, business degree from Cornell, perfect smile that made country club mothers clutch their pearls. He was the son my parents paraded at fundraisers, the one they mentioned first when anyone asked about family. I was the afterthought, the kid who asked too many questions and refused to fake enthusiasm for appearances. At 16, I questioned why we were donating to a veterans charity if my father called soldiers government welfare cases at dinner. My mother's face went cold. Don't embarrass us, Derek. At 17, I suggested Mason's business venture sounded like a pyramid scheme. I got locked out of the house for 3 days. When I enlisted at 18, signed the papers the day after graduation, they told the neighbors I was finding himself. Not once did they mention the army. Not once did they ask where I was going. My father handed me a $100 bill at the recruitment office. Don't expect us to bail you out when this doesn't work. That was it. No pride, no concern, just a crisp Franklin and a warning. I shipped to Fort Benning in June, Georgia heat that could melt asphalt, drill instructors screaming until their voices cracked. I learned to shoot, march, survive on 4 hours of sleep and spite. Basic training was hell. Advanced individual training was worse. But for the first time in my life, I belonged somewhere. The Army didn't care that I was the disappointment kid from Connecticut. It cared whether I could do my job. By October, I was deployed. Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. Can't say which unit. Still classified. Can't talk about what we did. Bound by an NDA that carries federal prison time. What I can say, the heat felt like breathing through a furnace. The landscape was beautiful and brutal. Mountains that could hide an army. Valleys that became graveyards. We ran night operations. Pulled security. Did the work nobody talks about at homecoming parades. I sent 3 letters home, handwritten, mailed through APO channels. Never got a response. Not when I made specialist. Not when I earned my combat action badge. Not when the convoy got hit and I spent 2 weeks in a field hospital with cracked ribs and a concussion that made the world tilt sideways. My mother sent one thing, a Christmas card, generic, the kind you buy in bulk, inside in her perfect cursive, hope you're well. The club's holiday gala raised $40,000 this year. Very proud of Mason's promotion. Mother, no love, no miss you. Just status updates like I was a distant acquaintance. 3 years later, I came home. Walter Reed Medical Center first. 8 weeks of physical therapy for the leg that didn't want to bend right anymore. Then a C-130 to Muir Air Force Base. Then a Greyhound bus to Connecticut because nobody was picking me up. I showed up at the family house on a Tuesday afternoon. October, leaves turning gold and red like the world was burning slow. My mother opened the door halfway, looked me up and down. Oh, you're back. That was it. No hug, no tears. No, thank God you're alive. Just surprised that I'd had the audacity to survive. My father was in his study, barely glanced up from his laptop. You need money? No. Good. Mason's staying in the guest house while his condo is being renovated. You'll have to figure something else out. I slept on the couch that night, left before dawn, never went back. I found a studio apartment in New Haven, 400 square feet radiator that clanged like church bells, but it was mine. I filed my paperwork for veteran benefits through a legal aid clinic downtown. Maria Santos, a paralegal with tired eyes and a kind smile, helped me navigate the VA labyrinth. You've got a Bronze Star, she said, reading my service summary. Why didn't your family? They don't know what. My records are classified. Operational security. I can't talk about most of what I did, so to them I just disappeared for 3 years. Maria stared at me. That's insane? I shrugged. It is what it is. The VA approved my disability claim. 30% for the leg, 10% for hearing damage, 10% for the PTSD diagnosis I'd gotten at Walter Reed. Not much. Enough to survive. I got a job at a Veterans Resource Center. Helped other guys navigate the system. Listened to their stories. Didn't tell mine. I learned to live quiet, small, invisible. But survival insulted my parents somehow. Like staying alive was a personal affront to their narrative that I was destined to fail. The lawsuit arrived on a gray January morning. Certified mail, heavy envelope. Charles E. Conincade and Margaret L. Conincade versus Derek R. Conincade. Civil action number 2025 CV0847. I stood in my kitchen reading the complaint, coffee getting cold, hands shaking. The plaintiffs allege the defendant has engaged in a pattern of fraudulent behavior, specifically 1, falsely claiming military service in the United States Army. 2, fabricating a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. 3, unlawfully obtaining veteran benefits totaling approximately $18,000 over 2 years. 4, defaming the family name through said fraudulent claims. The list went on. 6 pages signed by Preston Sterling, attorney at law. I should have been furious. Instead, I laughed, a bitter, broken sound that echoed off the cheap walls. They hadn't just forgotten me. They'd rewritten me, erased 3 years of my life, turned my scars into lies, made my service, everything I'd given, everyone I'd tried to save into a con job. My phone buzzed. Rita Vance, the public defender assigned to my case. Mr. Conincade, we need to meet. This is bad. Rita's office smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Files stacked on every surface. A potted plant dying slowly by the window. She looked exhausted. Okay, walk me through this. You served? Yes. You have proof. It's classified. What does that mean? My unit operated under sealed protocols. My records are redacted. Even my medical evacuation papers only list a code designation. Rita rubbed her temples. So, you have no proof. I have a DD-214, but the details are blackguard. National security exemption, and you can't declassify them. Not without Pentagon authorization, which takes months if they approve it at all. Rita leaned back. Her chair squeaked. Your parents have money? Yes. Sterling's a shark. He specializes in reputation cases. High-profile families protecting their image. She pulled out a file. They've submitted 30 affidavits. Country club members, family, friends, business associates, all saying they never saw evidence of military service. Because I never told anyone. Why? What was I supposed to do? Show up at their charity galas in my uniform, beg them to acknowledge me. Rita was quiet. Then this is going to trial, and without documentation, we're going to get destroyed. The deposition started in February. Preston Sterling's office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking New Haven Harbor. Leather chairs, original art on the walls. The receptionist offered me sparkling water. Sterling himself was 50-some. Silver hair, perfectly styled, smile that never reached his eyes. Mr. Conincade, thank you for coming. He settled into his chair like a king on a throne. Court reporter already typing. Let's start simple. You claim you served in the United States Army from June 2021 to September 2024. Yes. Where? Afghanistan. Can't specify location. Operational security. How convenient. He made a note. And your unit? Classified. Your commanding officer? Classified. The base you were stationed at? Classified. Sterling smiled. Mr. Conincade, you understand how this sounds? I said nothing. He slid a document across the table. This is a letter from the Department of Defense. We submitted a FOIA request for your service records. They confirmed. There is no Derek R. Conincade listed in general enlistment databases for the dates you claim. Because my records are sealed or because you never served, Rita intervened. Objection. Argumentative. Sterling waved it off. Let me ask you this, Derek. Can I call you Derek? I didn't answer. Why would your parents lie? What do they gain from this lawsuit? You'd have to ask them. I have. They say you came home 3 years ago after traveling around Southeast Asia, working odd jobs, and started claiming military service to access benefits. They say they tried to intervene, get you psychiatric help, but you became hostile, threatening. My stomach dropped. That's not true. They have documentation, emails to a family therapist, text messages expressing concern, a formal request to the VA questioning your eligibility. He slid more papers across. I scanned them. My mother's handwriting, my father's signature. They'd been building this case for 2 years. The hearing was set for March 15th. I had 6 weeks. Rita tried everything. She contacted the Pentagon, stonewalled by classification protocols. She reached out to the VA. They confirmed my benefits, but couldn't release details without authorization. She tracked down guys from my basic training unit. 2 were deployed overseas. 1 was dealing with his own VA nightmare. 1 was too messed up to give a coherent statement. Every door closed. We need character witnesses, Rita said during one of our prep sessions. People who knew you before, during, after. I don't have anyone. Friends, teachers, employers. I left for basic training the day after graduation. Haven't been back to Connecticut much since. The people I served with. I can't contact them without violating security protocols. Rita looked like she might cry. Derek, they're going to win. I knew she was right. My parents showed up to every pre-trial motion. Margaret in designer suits, Charles in tailored wool. They sat in the gallery looking like concerned parents, victimized by a troubled son. Mason came to one hearing, sat in the back, didn't make eye contact. After I cornered him in the parking garage. You really think I made this up? He wouldn't look at me. I don't know what to think, Derek. You're my brother, and you disappeared for 3 years. No calls, no visits. Then you show up claiming you were some secret soldier. He finally met my eyes. It sounds insane. It is insane. That's why it's true. But Mason just shook his head. Mom and Dad just want to protect the family from what? The truth. He walked away, left me standing next to my beat-up Honda. Leg aching, hands shaking with rage I couldn't express. Trial started on a Wednesday, March 15th. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old wood. Judge Amelia Mendes presided, 50 years old, sharp eyes, reputation for running a tight courtroom. She'd been appointed 2 years ago after a distinguished career as a prosecutor. Rita had warned me, Mendes is tough but fair. She doesn't tolerate games, but she also doesn't tolerate sob stories. Just answer honestly, don't embellish. The courtroom filled slowly. My parents and their legal team on one side, me and Rita on the other. A handful of observers in the gallery, court watchers, a couple journalists, someone sketching for a local news site. Judge Mendes entered. We stood be seated. Case number 2025, CV0847, Consincade versus Concade. Mr. Sterling, opening statement. Sterling rose smooth, confident. He painted a picture of a troubled young man who couldn't handle expectations, who disappeared for years, who returned with elaborate stories and a con artist's charm. The evidence will show, he concluded, that Derek Consincade never served a day in uniform, that he has defrauded the government and embarrassed his family through a calculated campaign of lies. He sat down. Rita stood. Her opening was shorter, simpler. The evidence will show that Derek Consincade is exactly who he says he is, that his service is real, and that his parents, for reasons we may never fully understand, have chosen to deny it. Then the testimony began. Sterling called my mother first. Margaret Quincade took the stand like she was accepting an award, poised, elegant, sympathetic. Mrs. Consincade, can you describe your relationship with your son? It's been difficult. She dabbed her eyes. No actual tears. Derek has always been troubled, rebellious. He resented his brother's success. Did he tell you he was joining the military? No. He left home suddenly. We didn't hear from him for months. And when he returned, he showed up at our door claiming he'd been in Afghanistan. But he had no proof, no photos, no stories he could actually tell. It was all vague, suspicious. Did you believe him? We wanted to. She looked at the jury, but the more we investigated, the more inconsistencies we found. Sterling introduced the evidence piece by piece. Photo albums, guest lists from family events during my supposed deployment, statements from country club members, a letter from my high school guidance counselor describing me as prone to exaggeration. It was devastating. Rita cross-examined. Mrs. Consincade, did Derek send you letters while he was gone? A few. Did you keep them? No. Did you respond? Pause. I don't recall. You don't recall if you wrote your son back while he claimed to be in a combat zone? It was a confusing time. Did you ask him about his service when he returned? He wouldn't talk about it, or you wouldn't listen. Objection. Sterling was on his feet. Sustained, Judge Mendes said, but her eyes flickered to my mother. My father testified next. Charles Consincade, CEO of a regional investment firm, board member at 3 nonprofits, pillar of the community. He was colder than my mother, more clinical. Derek has always struggled with reality, he stated. This military fantasy is just the latest illusion. You filed a complaint with the VA? Yes, we believe he fraudulently obtained benefits. Why would he do that? Money, attention, a way to justify years of aimless drifting. Rita barely made a dent on Cross. My father was too practiced, too smooth. Sterling called Mason. My brother looked uncomfortable, kept tugging at his tie. Did Derek ever mention military service before he left? No. Has he shown you proof since returning? He says it's classified. Do you believe him? Long pause. I don't know what to believe. Then Sterling called Dr. Lawrence Peaton, a psychiatrist who'd never met me, but had reviewed materials related to the case. In your professional opinion, doctor, is it possible someone could fabricate a military history? Absolutely. It's called pseudo-alogia fantastica, pathological lying driven by a need for significance. Could someone experiencing this condition pass initial VA screening? Potentially, especially if they've researched extensively and and can mimic symptoms. Could they fake PTSD? It's documented in medical literature. Rita objected. Your Honor, Dr. Peaton has never examined my client. Goes to wait. Judge Mendez ruled. Continue. We recessed for lunch. I couldn't eat. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Rita tried to be encouraging. We have our turn this afternoon. I'll put you on the stand. No, Derek, you have to testify. I can't talk about most of what happened. Every answer will be classified or I can't discuss that. It'll sound like I'm hiding something. You are hiding something. Your actual service. Because I legally have to. She slumped back. Then we're done. Sterling's going to argue that your silence proves guilt. Judge Mendez will have no choice but to rule against you. I stared at the courthouse cafeteria table, at my reflection in the scratched surface. I won't break my oath, I said quietly, even to save myself. Rita was quiet then. That's incredibly stupid. Yeah, probably. Court reconvened at 1:30 p.m. Sterling began his closing arguments. He was methodical, devastating. He walked the jury through every piece of evidence, every contradiction, every moment of my silence. How can we trust someone who can't even prove where he's been, he concluded. Who hides behind classified at every question? Who asks us to believe an extraordinary story with zero verification? He gestured to my parents. These are good people trying to protect their family name to stop a pattern of behavior before it causes more damage. The defense has provided nothing. No witnesses, no documents, no proof, just silence, just excuses. He sat down. Rita stood for our closing. She was brief, too brief. Derek Consincade served his country. The fact that he can't prove it in this courtroom doesn't mean it didn't happen. His silence is honor, not guilt. I urge you to consider. Judge Mendez leaned forward suddenly. Ms. Vance, one moment. The room went quiet. Mendez looked at me, really looked at me. Her expression was unreadable. Mr. Consincade, stand up. I stood, leg protesting, heart hammering. Turn around slowly. I did. Felt every eye in the courtroom tracking me. Lift your left pant leg. I hesitated. Rita looked confused. Sterling was already objecting. Your Honor, this is highly irregular, I said. Lift it. I bent down, pulled up the fabric, exposed the scar running from my ankle to mid-feet. Puckered, angry. The kind of mark that comes from shrapnel in emergency field surgery. The courtroom was dead silent. That's enough, Mendez said. You can sit, I sat. My hands were shaking harder now. Judge Mendez picked up her gavel, set it down, stood. I'm calling a recess. 30 minutes. Everyone remain available. She left the bench. The bailiff looked confused. I waited in the hallway with Rita. She was pacing. What just happened? I don't know. Did you know the judge was going to do that? No, Derek. That's Scar IED blast. Kandahar province. Can't say more than that. Rita stopped pacing. How bad? Bad enough. She was quiet. Then if Mendez recognizes it as combat trauma, maybe she'll take that into consideration. But I don't know. I've never seen her do anything like this. 35 minutes later, we were called back. Judge Mendez sat at her bench. Her expression was different, harder, more certain. Court will come to order. Mr. Sterling, you may proceed with any remaining arguments. Sterling stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff's rest. We believe the evidence clearly demonstrates. I can tell you exactly where he's been. The room froze. Every head turned. Judge Mendez's voice was low, steady, deadly, calm. Excuse me. Sterling looked confused. I said, I can tell you exactly where Derek Consincade has been. My mother's hand flew to her pearls. My father went rigid. Sterling's mouth opened and closed like a fish dying slowly on a dock. Mendez continued, each word deliberate. 112th Medical Evacuation Battalion, Arghandab Valley, Kandahar Province, August 2023. My heart stopped. Our convoy got hit. I was pinned in a vehicle that was catching fire. Specialist Derek Consincade pulled me out. She looked directly at me. He held pressure on my femoral artery with his bare hands for 40 minutes while we waited for the medevac chopper. I was bleeding out, going into shock. He kept talking to me, kept me conscious, kept me alive. If the courtroom had gone completely silent. I didn't know his real name until I saw the case file last week, Mendez continued. In the field, we all used call signs, but I recognized the scar on his leg. Same blast that injured me, same shrapnel pattern. Sterling tried to recover. Your Honor, this is ambush testimony. You can't what? Mendez's voice cut like steel. Can't tell the truth about a soldier who saved my life. Can't provide evidence in my own courtroom. You should have recused yourself. I didn't know he was the same person until I saw him stand up. She picked up a sealed file. This morning during recess, I contacted the Pentagon. Under emergency judicial exception for active miscarriage of justice, I requested his service record be declassified for purposes of this proceeding. She held up the file. It arrived 20 minutes ago. Rita was staring. So was everyone else. Mendez handed the file to her clerk. Read it into the record. The clerk's voice shook slightly. Service record for Specialist Derek Consincade. Enlisted June 2021. Deployed to Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. September 2021. Unit designation redacted for operational National Security. Awarded Combat Action Badge. November 2021. Purple Heart. August 2023. Bronze Star with V device for valor. August 2023. Citation for exceptionally valorous actions under hostile fire resulting in 14 personnel successfully extracted from active combat zone. That's enough, Mendez said quietly. The clerk sat down the file. No one moved. No one breathed. Mendez looked at my parents. Your son is a war hero. He saved my life and 13 others. He carries scars, visible and invisible from service. You apparently couldn't be bothered to acknowledge. My mother's face had gone pale under her makeup. My father looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Case dismissed, Mendez announced with prejudice. It can never be filed again. She picked up her gavel, paused. Mr. and Mrs. Consincade, your son did more in 3 years than most people do in a lifetime. The fact that you tried to destroy him for it. She shook her head. Get out of my courtroom. The gallery erupted. Reporters scrambling, observers murmuring. Sterling was trying to object, but Mendez was already standing, already leaving the bench. My parents sat frozen. Margaret's perfect composure cracked. Charles stared straight ahead, shoulders stiff, jaw clenched. Rita grabbed my arm. Derek, we won. I couldn't speak. Mason stood from the gallery, started toward me. I saw recognition in his face. Horror, shame. I turned away and then I saw him back row. A Marine in dress blues, gray-haired, chest full of ribbons. He was standing slowly, deliberately. He raised his hand, rendered a sharp, perfect salute. Then another veteran stood. Army saluted. Then another Navy. Then another. A ripple of movement spreading through the courtroom. Every veteran present, observers, court security. A baif I hadn't noticed, standing, saluting. My eyes burned. My throat closed. I didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't wave or acknowledge them beyond a single nod. I just turned, walked down the center aisle, past my parents who wouldn't look at me, past Sterling who was packing his briefcase with shaking hands, past the reporters already typing their stories. Rita caught up with me in the hallway. Where are you going? Home. Derek, wait. The media is going to want a statement. Your parents might try to appeal. They can't. Dismissed with prejudice. But Rita, I stopped, looked at her. Thank you for trying even when it looked impossible. She nodded, didn't push. I walked out of the courthouse into cold March air. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and purple and beautiful. My phone buzzed. Text from Maria Santos at the VA. Saw the news. Holy, you okay? I typed back, yeah, finally. Another buzz. Unknown number. This is Judge Mendez. Wanted to check if you have everything you need right. Service documentation. Also wanted to say thank you again for that night. I never got the chance. I stared at the screen, typed, you just gave me everything I needed. Thank you, Your Honor. Her response came quickly. Amelia, and I think you outrank me anyway. Specialist. I almost laughed. 2 months later, I got a formal letter from the Pentagon. Full declassification of my service record. Authorization to discuss details if I chose. I filed it away. Didn't read it. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Not to my parents, not to Mason, not to anyone. The Veteran Resource Center offered me a promotion, more responsibility, more pay. I took it. Started working with guys who came home to families like mine, who needed someone who understood. I never heard from my parents again. No apology, no acknowledgement. Mason called once. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, said he was sorry, said he should have believed me, asked if we could talk. I deleted it. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. Some distances are merciful. 6 months after the trial, I got invited to speak at a veterans event. Small gathering, guys sharing stories, building community. Amelia Mendez was there, not as a judge, just as another veteran. We talked for 2 hours about that night in the Arundel Valley, about what came after, about the weight of carrying stories you can't tell. You know what bothers me most? She said, your parents had you right there, this incredible person, and they were so busy protecting their image they couldn't see you. Yeah, you deserved better, we both did. That's why we kept going anyway. She smiled. Yeah, I guess that's the job. I still live in that studio apartment, still drive the beat-up Honda, still work at the resource center helping guys navigate the VA labyrinth. The difference is I'm not hiding anymore. Not from my story, not from the scars, not from the truth about what I did and who I am. My parents wanted me erased. They wanted their version of the story. The troubled son, the fabricated fantasy, the embarrassment they could blame and disown. But I'm still here, still standing, still helping others stand. They lost everything they tried to take from me. Their reputation, their case, their control over the narrative, and I didn't have to destroy them. The truth did it for me. I'm Derek Consincade, Army Specialist, Combat Medic, Bronze Star recipient, and I don't need anyone's permission to exist.